Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 84, Political Poetry. Today is November the 3rd, 2024. We're only 2 days in advance of the United States presidential election on Tuesday. And so with such a big event looming, I thought maybe we should do something at least tangentially related for our podcast. Now, we don't usually talk about politics. We don't dive into candidates or issues. We tend to talk at a more abstract level. And this time, I don't think we're going to break that pattern exactly. We're going to have a little bit of fun with it, though. What I did is, since campaigns lie and politicians exaggerate and the media spins, one thing talks directly to the human soul, and that's poetry, as Daniel well knows. So what I did is I scoured the internet, the artistic medium, for poetry related to this 2024 election, or at least to the candidates involved in this election. And I have to tell you, they are shining specimens of brilliance, as you would expect. And amid these poems, I hid some of my own poems that I wrote just for this episode. Now, these poems don't necessarily represent my actual views or beliefs, but I tried to camouflage them so that Daniel would be fooled. It's very similar to some of our past episodes, like episode 8, Hereditary Poetry, or the lyrical analysis episodes like Popper Slop, Rapper Crap, or Country or Crock, where I present fake songs or poems amid some real ones, and Daniel has to choose. So that's what we do this time. It's a very fun episode. We have poems about Trump, we have poems about Kamala, we have poems about Biden and insurrections, and it's just all over the place, and have a lot of laughs at the expense of both politicians and poets alike. So I hope you will enjoy the episode, see if any of the poems persuade you who to vote for, or if they just make you laugh at how stupid the world is. Please enjoy.
Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Bennett.
How are you doing today?
I'm okay. I had Friday off work. I
nice.
should be well rested, but it's the classic. I have a 6-month-old who sometimes wakes up early, and I'm not as well rested as I want to be.
Classic.
Yeah.
Well, we have a very interesting event coming up this coming week. It's actually the U.S. presidential election.
I've heard
arriving.
of it.
Yeah, it's a thing we do. And it's very, politics very contentious right now.
Yes.
Although
you
maybe
cannot like the other side, or you're evil. Is what I hear.
Although
the other side's
maybe
evil.
I don't know if you feel the same way. It feels maybe like 2 degrees less contentious than last time. I don't know. Maybe that's just a weird sense that I'm getting. It seems like people are tired, and so they're not wanting to contend quite as much. Either way,
I think you might be right. I don't know. I bury my head a little bit more too. I might have buried my head 2 degrees more.
I think that's what a lot of people are doing. Anyway,
Yeah.
we've made a pretty conscious effort, or maybe an unconscious effort, to not discuss politics much on this podcast because it's so contentious. I think that's still a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're making me a little nervous. You're like,
I know I'll make you nervous, but calm yourself. We're not going to destroy our palatability to the American people.
Yeah.
Totally.
Nice. No, not totally.
Not totally. A little bit. In 2020, before that election, we also did a politics-related episode, but it wasn't specific to the election. It was about voting. Do you remember that? It was about the voting system in America, the history of it, and how it might be improved.
Yes.
And actually, that was a very weird episode because my audio was totally lost, and I had to reenact the entire episode afterwards. Just some bullshit, just some technology bullshit again.
Wait, so you just went and kind of
I just
it was fresh on your mind.
Yeah, it was fresh on my mind. I listened to your audio and I responded.
I forgot. That's a labor of love right there.
It
Like,
truly
just
was, and it came out Pretty good. I think you could listen to it and not notice, aside from me joking about it a couple of times.
There's gonna be some weird pauses, but I guess you could just once you've said what you want to say, and maybe you ad lib or you went a little longer when you first did it, so you just edit down the gap in my
Yeah,
response, right?
it was a lot of work, but yeah, I made it work. Anyway, all that said, it's 2024, current year, and we're here at another election. And I know you said
Yes.
you maybe had your head buried in the sand a little bit. Maybe you're still a little undecided. And so in this episode, I wanted to find the most persuasive and informative sources possible that at least you could use to inform yourself and help to make up your mind before this momentous, pivotal day in American history. And now, before you become too concerned about this, we know that the campaigns for Trump and Harris, they exaggerate. We know that the media lies. It's totally biased. Everyone has their biases, no matter where you're looking. But
Yeah.
I know that you know, just as I do, that there's one source that speaks directly to the human soul, unerringly, and that is poetry.
Okay. I'm braced.
And so, similar to a really old episode of ours, episode 8, Hereditary Poetry, where I found poems of various categories and presented them to you. Now,
Yeah.
today, I've scoured the human heart, the collective human heart, and compiled political poetry
Oh man.
relevant relevant to this election.
Oh
And
man.
these poems will help you navigate these difficult times.
Oh man. So this is not a choose or is it a did Bennett write one of these or
Well,
I don't
I have 5 categories
okay.
of poems. So
Yes.
there's one category that's just general or issues based. There's a
But it's
category
current. They're current issues based. They're
Yes.
like
Yes.
written for this election.
Written for this-
These are written around these elections to
They're-
persuade voters in some way.
exactly. It's relevant to this election, whether it
Okay.
was written.
get
They're
it,
all
I get
they're all
it.
relatively recent. Anyway, general issues: Trump, Biden, Kamala, and events. These are the 5 categories that are available. I have 3 poems in each category, and I wrote one of them in each category.
Out of all, oh, okay.
So you have a 33% chance of randomly guessing the one I wrote. But I would like you, for each poem that we go through, I would like you to first try to guess whether it's one that I wrote or whether it's quote unquote real poem, and then give me a brief analysis, your thoughts, and how persuaded you were by.
Yeah.
by
I might
the
just
poem.
I might flip flop a lot here and
I know.
want to vote for one candidate and then vote for another, and
Right.
we'll
This
see what I
is-
learn in this process.
This is gonna just yank you all over the place, back and forth, Republican, Democrat, Kamala, Trump. Ugh, it's gonna be crazy, but you can handle it, I think. And by the end, you will be a more informed voter, as will everyone, all the millions of people listening to this episode.
Oh man. Okay, take me on this ride.
All right, we're gonna start off with the general and issues category. So
All
I've
right.
I've sent you these categories so that you can. I found
Yeah,
usually
pulling
we
it
talked
up
about this
as we
before, but when I hear people recite poetry, it just goes in one ear and out the other. I don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't land. Same with
That's
musical
why you want me
lyrics.
to see it visually, so
So I just thought this would help you out, and maybe I'll do this for future episodes of like rapper crap and all of that stuff.
yeah. That would actually be good.
All right, so here we go. You ready for the first poem? I'll read it
Yes.
for you, and you can follow along. All right, this one is called "The Hill We Climb." We gather at this hallowed place because we believe in the American dream. We face a race that tests if this country we cherish shall perish from the earth, and if our earth shall perish from this country. It falls to us to ensure that we do not fall for a people that cannot stand together, cannot stand at all. We are one family, regardless of religion, class, or color. For what defines a patriot is not just our love of liberty, but our love for one another. This is loud in our country's call, because while we all love freedom, it is love that frees us all. Empathy emancipates, making us greater than hate or vanity. That is the American promise, powerful and pure. Divided we cannot endure, but united we can endeavor to humanize our democracy and endear democracy to humanity. And make no mistake, cohering is the hardest task history ever wrote. But tomorrow is not written by our odds of hardship, but by the audacity of our hope, by the vitality of our vote. Only now, approaching this rare air, are we aware that perhaps the American dream is no dream at all, but instead a dare to dream together. Like a million roots tethered, branching up humbly, making one tree, this is our country from many, one from battles won, our freedom sung, our kingdom come has just begun. We redeem this sacred scene, ready for our journey from it. Together we must birth this early republic and achieve an unearthly summit. Let us not just believe in the American dream, let us be worthy of it.
Woo!
Soul touching.
It sounds vaguely familiar. I don't know if there was like the poet laureate that delivered something at some political speech, and the hill we climb. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm just trying to process aloud that two things. It feels real because that sounds vaguely familiar, and I can't quite place it. And then it feels real because I think Bennett can't resist the perfect rhyme at the end, and there's enough like internal rhyme and almost rhyme, slant rhyme, whatever stuff going on.
All right.
So I'm inclined to feel that that's real. But I also think it says some things that are Bennett-ish. When I hear the word empathy, we had a whole podcast about it, and I feel like you can't help yourself if you're kind of being silly to maybe say something like empathy emancipates. So that's what's weird. As I was like, oh, I know this one's a real one, and then like there was just little things like love is love. I don't know, or whatever. It didn't say that, but like stuff that like you it feels like you were injected into it a little. I don't know. All right, let's keep going.
All right, we'll circle back. I got some comments, but we'll circle back. All right, option number 2 is titled "Donald Trump is President." 3rd August 1972. Ordinary political council in California. Plato. Major mystery of discrimination against blacks. Secret list. Before death. Leprosy patients. Knee to knee. Magic music ganjas. Unusual art. Overdosing Trump. Walk on half cold water. Mistaken. Hot sauce. Powerless United Nations. Most strongest head trippin'. Donald Trump, abnormally hellish. Most incredible mad president on the planet. Let's talk about hopeful draft of an ordinance. Unbelievable political apocalypses in hellish, hot buttered room. Leprosy deliberation. Its craziest handicapped person discriminatory stage. Morning in White House. Donald Trump is steel and plastic in full. Can't even eat bread. A tube inserted through into nose to stomach to feed him. Upper and lower eyelid barely glued together like threads. Of course, he cannot see. Flesh of his cheeks is sore, in the blood and mud, yellowed and ugly bones floating. The molding of the face, somehow he manages to keep it together, and the view of a normal person go mad. Deformed aversion, it's vomiting and chills, life and death, worthlessness of experience, dead lower half of the body, Parkinson and Minamata's disease and AIDS even. Schizophrenia is mocked, Coca-Cola bottles, blue moss on them, brick walls were home to crayfish. Hear the snapping.
That did that I listening and listening and reading was it's more of an impressionistic piece really than sense making. And I haven't heard much about this Donald Trump fella, but after listening to this piece, I don't like him so much. There's some things, there's some vibes out there.
There
that
were some
seem
vibes.
bad. Yeah, just mostly vibes, really.
A lot of vibes
Plato. But then I think my intuition says this is real because you could mock this structure successfully, but there's just some. I'm gonna go ahead and say I think you're smarter than the person that wrote this poem, and like even just the language abnormally hellish feels like something like a person who doesn't read that often tries to really come up with a unique phrase for something bad, and so abnormally hellish sounds smart to a person who isn't smart, if that makes any sense. Like those sound like big words, and even the word, I think you used the word unique in here, right? There's something, I'm gonna see if I can find the word unique.
I don't.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think so.
Okay, I don't think so then. But there was just the funny, abnormally hellish, and something else I was gonna. But
Well,
it
hellish
just doesn't.
was used twice in a hellish hot buttered room.
That was funny too. I don't even quite.
But it's a good visual, right? There are a lot of visuals in this one. Vibes and visuals.
Vibes and visuals, and not much sense making. But yeah, but it gave you that impression of horribleness, hellish horribleness.
Hellish abnormally. All right, you ready for the third and final general and issues based
Yes.
poem? This one is called Illegal Bodies.
Okay.
My body, flesh, muscle, and soon-to-be American determination, not Haitian, not Asian, not even in relation to my pigmentation, but what's inside shines like the Mexican sun as I stride, head high, despite walls and laws and calls for all to abide, I cross the line. That border, that ephemeral division between chaos and order, my destiny, amnesty, restlessly I toil, but regal, and they call me illegal. But no but no body is illegal. My body is legal.
Oh man, that's got to be Bennett. This feels so Bennett. I just like immediately am like that's got to be Bennett. Casting my vote for that, but I will then go and then I will analyze it. Well, it's good, and maybe, well, I mean, it's good. It mocks so much about poetry. It just, man, I hope I'm right here.
You are right. This one.
Yes, it's so satisfying.
You really.
I hope it frustrates you a little.
No, it doesn't actually, because this first category is the easiest, I think.
Okay.
Because I couldn't resist. All right, firstly, you were correct about the first poem. It is the poem delivered by Amanda Gorman, the poet laureate, at the Democratic National Convention. In fact, this is the seed that spawned this entire idea. Yeah, this year.
Or is it older?
This year, for Joe Biden's nomination.
Okay.
And it spawned the idea for this entire thing because it made me laugh out loud. That poem made me laugh because it was so poetic. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, it's so poetic. Yes.
It's so, like, in your face, just pretentious.
It's not going to invite any non-poetry lovers. They're going to hear it and go, that's why I don't like poetry. And the poetry lovers are going to go, that's why I like poetry. It's not an invitation at all. It's just such a poem. I don't know how to explain that, but like it doesn't deconstruct or broaden horizons or invite new people in, which I think good poetry often does, right? It challenges, or just like you lose the fact that it's a poem and you're having an experience through the linguistic, like a linguistic experience.
Right.
That's what a good poem does. And this is just like, I'm a poem.
Yep.
And
It's not cool. This is not a cool poem. It's
not
not a
cool.
fun. It's not a
It's
fun
not
poem.
interesting.
It's
It's
not
confident. It's very
It's
confident. It's not.
confident. Yeah,
it's
it's
not
confident.
embarrassing. It's like a safe. Like, you want me to write a poem? I'm the poet laureate. Here you go. That's what it feels like.
You know, she is 22 years old, or at least she was at the time that she wrote this. And that kind of makes sense to me. And it also makes me wonder, what the hell is a poet laureate? Because this, like, it when I hear poet laureate, I think Surgeon General. You know, I think like commander.
Yeah, that
like,
level.
I think a person
Yes.
who is in charge of all
poetry.
of poetry, basically.
It's that basically the highest honor you can get.
Yeah, right.
Things like my favorite poet Billy Collins was poet laureate one year or something, and saying that is like saying you've won the Nobel Prize in poetry or something. I mean, it's that level. Yes,
Right.
it should be.
It's like any poem you write, most poets, 75% of poets should look at that and go, wow, that was a good poem. Because this is the peak of poetry. And I just don't see that from this poem. This poem, it made me, like I said, it made me laugh. There's one line: "We face a race that tests if this country we cherish shall perish from the earth, and if our earth shall perish from this country." What does that mean?
And if our earth shall perish from it, I don't know. You feel, if you squint with your brain, it kind of
Yeah,
makes
right.
sense.
Brain squinting. There's a lot of that involved in poetry. And the other part about that one that made me laugh is, and make no mistake, cohering is the hardest task history ever wrote. And I agree, because this poem is close to incoherent.
I'm impressed with myself. Why I'm not kidding when I wasn't pretending. I just don't remember.
Yeah, no,
But Hill We
great.
Climb,
Great job.
poet laureate. Like, I think it made some educational circles. Probably wound up in my inbox through educational subscriptions I have, and I glance at stuff sometimes. Like, that's where I'm guessing here, but like,
Yeah.
my eyes went across this. But then, like I said, there were parts.
Oh yeah, there are some parts that
were like you would have written in mockery.
right. The parts that made me laugh did so because I thought they were worthy of mockery. And yeah, anyway, so this one like on a poetic level, yeah, I find it a little trite and very poemish. On a content level, it's pretty safe. It has
It's
a couple.
just
It has a
safe,
couple.
just political. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Just general
whatever.
political, some hyperbole. Framing the next election as if it's the last
Very important.
election.
Yeah, which is pretty standard stuff, I guess.
Pretty standard. And then the second one, here's some trivia on Donald Trump is president.
Yeah.
The author of this is a chap by the name of Little Chikamatsu. He's a Japanese amateur or native poet, born and raised in Osaka. He says he's
Okay.
not a bookworm, but he spent his youth with a love of poetry.
This starts to explain. I didn't know if the 3rd August 1972 is a strange start.
I have a striking suspicion that this was written in Japanese and then machine translated to English.
Yes.
Because it is nonsense.
And that is something that AI is, better than it used to be in the last 2 years. But poetry is an interesting thing to try and capture through, like I don't know if we talked about this before, but it can't help but rhyme. If you could say write a poem that doesn't rhyme. At least a few months ago, I was trying to get it to write a poem that doesn't rhyme, and it's just so connected to rhyming, like it can't not do the rhyming. So
Almost like me.
yeah. I mean, there is something about I will do the rhyming.
That's because the
It
AI
comes out.
the AI knows, as I do, that if it doesn't rhyme, it's not a poem.
Yeah, that's how it thinks. It's just like it's read enough poetry, and it's like, this is what poetry is. Like, and it keeps reading stuff, and yeah. So and then translating and understanding. If it's not rhyming, then what the heck is it? And I don't think AI is gonna fully grasp it. I don't know if humans fully grasp it. So yeah, you're right. I think it's safe to say even that this was a translation.
Yeah.
But
I
think it was weird anyway. It was still
was weird, yeah.
everything we said. Like, it's not meant. It has this dream logic of.
Yeah.
I don't even know if logic's the right, but it's just.
I-
Poetry is meant to be experienced that way sometimes, and that's pleasant to not try to make everything make perfect sense, but just to swim in some imagery, and that's okay.
Right. When I first read this one, I thought, wow, this is gobbledygook nonsense, and it made me laugh really loudly.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I've read it now about 5 times, and I kind of like it.
No, yeah, like that's the thing about poetry. It changes, your relationship changes with it the more you interact with it. But
Yeah, I
it
mean,
can't.
there's some phrases in there like leprosy patients knee to knee. What does knee to knee mean? Like when I see it, I see like someone trying to rescue someone with mouth to mouth, but this is a new medical procedure, knee to knee, that rescues leprosy patients. And
I pictured them so crowded in a hospital, they're sitting
oh,
and
that's
their
probably
knees are
it. That's
touching.
better. The
Not to
first
be,
the
yeah.
first half was weird, and then the second half seemed more like an image of Donald Trump, like sick in his on his deathbed or something.
Well,
Like,
that's what he's looking at a picture, or he's either looking at a picture or wants us to imagine a picture, but saying
yeah,
can't even eat bread. A
yeah, right,
tube
a tube.
inserted through into his nose to stomach to feed him.
I thought
Like,
there was one poetic or two lines that I thought are the only ones that are actually poetic, and that is in the blood and mud, yellowed and ugly bones floating. That's pretty good. That's pretty poetic.
yeah, blood and yeah, both visually and phonesthetically,
Yeah.
he listening to it. There's something nice about it. Or I mean, it's dark and weird, but
Yeah.
it's yeah. There's some merit to it. But there was just I just don't think you would do a good job replicating this. Like,
Yeah,
you're
it would
good.
be
You're like,
hard.
you're very good. Like I pay high compliments to you,
It would
but
be
like
hard.
I don't. I don't think you could quite
Well,
do it.
I will admit this. It may make some of your guessing slightly easier, but I will admit that I was very challenged in this exercise to dumb down my brain to the level of all the examples that I found and try to, like, you might get 5 for 5 in this. It was very difficult for me, but that's okay. It's still fun.
The illegal bodies one that you wrote, did you decide on a topic
Yes.
beforehand? Like, okay, yeah, yeah. Wanted to know more about your process and all of that.
Yeah, I thought about, I was just trying to think of an event, an issue or not an event, sorry, just
I think you should
an issue.
submit all the poems you end up writing from these and
Oh,
put them
yeah.
on some website and just see.
Oh, this would go to straight to the New York Times.
Yeah,
And everything, they would publish these. Yeah, all right. Anyway, so yeah, I thought of the issue, and then I really like how pretentious the not just a normal AABB scheme is, and so
Right.
that's kind of what I was going for. Is I like those internal rhymes. I don't know what they're called when it's within the line. There's a lot of rhyming.
Yeah, despite walls and laws and calls for all to abide across
right.
the line. That's good.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, but-
I am very proud of the poetic composition of this. It's very pretentious and very. I mean, I'm already a rap artist and a country artist and a pop artist, and now I was already a
would-
poet, but now I'm even more of a poet.
I would even say your command of the English language and its illegal bodies, like hinting at like you are less than human, and yet you're presenting a very sophisticated
that's
stance
the-
as part of the argument. Like
I
rhetorically,
mean,
that's a good choice.
That's the rhetorical thing that's in the political discourse right now is using the word bodies to sort of dehumanize, intentionally dehumanize and kind of draw your attention to that. And so, yeah, I was definitely using
Well,
that.
it is I think it's an effective rhetorical choice to say something like insert whatever, discrimination, racism, whatever, like when comes to fruition impacts the body. Because I think racism is abstract, the body is very physical and easy to conceptualize. And so when you think about harm on the body,
Oh, yeah.
it is different than saying, I mean,
It
it's kind of
hits-
one of the
it
problems of
hits
selling.
different.
Yeah, well, selling something like recycling is like this, good thing to do for the environment. But if you want to be effective rhetorically or make an argument, you show like trash on the streets or whatever. Like you have to make everything concrete. I think generally speaking, we are bad at like we talk about kindness, honor, or the counterparts like racism and all. They're just all like bad things are bad, good things are good. But like the body choices, it gets pretty transparent quickly when it's exposed as a rhetorical like strategy. Then you are aware of it. But
Yeah.
before you're aware of it, that's an effective use.
Totally agree.
Yes.
All right, let's zoom along. The next category that of poems that we're gonna be examining is events, about events. So if you
Events.
want to pull that one up,
Yes.
we can go through the three. These are a little shorter, thankfully.
Okay. Yeah,
All right,
we might move faster, I guess. But yeah, okay, got it.
the first one is entitled "Insurrection." The fascist with dispassion watches with inaction, his faction smashing and clashing, teeth gnashing, bashing the officers, robbing the coffers of our fathers. He glowers, lusting for power, waiting 3 hours. Cowards defend him. Being outvoted won't end him. He'll send them. And laws? Amend them. Fake electors, silence defectors, bribe the objectors. Protectors can't form a defense. Shouts of hang Mike Pence. The vice president's the only one of the grand old gents making sense. Certifying, denying the crying opponent of Biden, fighting against democracy. With shock, he'll see his own defeat repeated on TV. A projection, rejection of his anti democratic election, a failed insurrection.
Man, that feels Bennett. It feels so Bennett. I haven't read the others, and I think I have to wait. But gosh, it just feels like you were in the flow state, and like I think there's a poet inside Bennett that doesn't, but he also wants to mock poetry, so he needs to write it, and so he can only write it by
Don't you psychoanalyze
just
me?
developing a
don't you-
podcast and playing a
don't-
game.
Don't you don't you put that psychoanalysis on me?
I think you really like poetry, but can't own your relationship with it, and you're good at it.
I'm a
And that's
poetic
good, and I
body.
think that's you.
Poetic body,
Your
that's
body is so poetic; it runs through your veins and out on the page.
Yep.
That just feels like Bennett. Let's keep going.
All right,
It feels like you were in the same headspace, by the way, like the same day you wrote it, because the rhyming and anyway, I might be wrong. We'll see if any of the others challenge me to think, oh yeah, maybe I'm wrong.
the second one is titled "Because of COVID." Because of COVID, former President Trump said it was a hoax. Many lives were lost due to death. Because of
Sorry, many lives were lost due to death. And it's also because of COVID. He said it was a hoax, and many I don't mean to interrupt the poem, but man, my brain's melting. Like, if you actually try to go like lives were lost due to death, or was death is the loss of life, or if he said it was a hoax, he was calling COVID. It wasn't because of COVID. It makes me just go, oh, this is dumb. Do you know what I mean? Like, anyway, can you start over?
yeah, because of COVID. Because of COVID, former President Trump said it was a hoax. Many lives were lost due to death. Because of COVID, jobs were lost and the people were let go from their jobs. Buildings were closed for a while. Some were closed for good. Because of COVID, children were going to school virtually and parents are working from home. Because of COVID, pets and people were placed on the streets and given food in order to survive. Because of COVID, doctors, nurses, fire police, and all EMS personnel, essential workers, have worked around the clock to make things happen. Because of COVID, mask wearing, PPE equipment, hand sanitizer, social distancing, washing your hands for a long period of time, COVID testing, and COVID vaccines were implemented. Because of COVID, some families were together and some were separated from one another. No hugging one another, no large gatherings, no proper burials of loved ones whom have gone before us. Because of COVID, some people are living, some still clinging onto their lives, and some are dying. All because of COVID. I like the poetic device in this one of repeating because of
Repetition
COVID.
because of COVID, and then ending with all because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't like that poem. In fact, it feels like something if I had a bell ringer activity with my students and said write a poem about a historical event, that's one that like a student willing to try but not poetic, an obedient student in ninth grade would write.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would read it and I would
Die a little inside.
I would look for something positive, and I'd say I would think I'd say that nice repetition.
Mm-hmm.
and then if it was like, if this person, let's say they were excited about the poem, like, oh, tell me more, like what else did you like? I'd say and hold on, I'm really gonna try to find something that I think's worthwhile. Well, I would say there's so much great about it, but like let's I'm having a hard time, right? But I would go into things like, okay, let's take a line like essential workers have worked around the clock to make things happen. Like poetry is meant to put
Very
images in our yeah. That's the problem is that never use the word things in a poem unless there's some reason to, and that's an example of not like the person writing the poem thinks by writing nurses and fire and police.
Fire police. Don't forget the fire police.
Yeah, it's nurses, comma fire, comma police, comma fire police. I think they thought that was cool, and it was not, because it's like again, do we have a translation issue?
It's a little bit of flow, you know.
Okay, let's go to the last poem. I don't have much to say about that.
The last one, a day of infamy and treason. There is no reason why this isn't treason. There is no excuse for all this abuse. While Republicans cower at Trump's fascist power, the world watches in awe at our next civil war. We all have the power to throw Trump from his tower, so hold fast to what is right, and we will yet win this fight.
That could be Bennett too. But the first one's so much more Bennett, so I'm sticking with that. And we have this awe and war rhyme, and everything else is perfect, I believe. Excuse, abuse, cower, power, all, war, power, tower, right, fight. I just don't think you could allow that in your brain. And you would just go, I've got to get a better word that rhymes with all or war. So yeah, I'm locking in that the insurrection poem is yours.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You got it. I was really
I know
proud
it
of
doesn't satisfy you much, but it satisfies
That's okay.
me.
I was really proud of this one too. I really liked the flow and the words. I probably spent an hour and a half on this poem.
Can we hear this one again, just knowing you wrote it? Yeah, go for it.
The fascist with dispassion watches with inaction, his faction, smashing and clashing, teeth gnashing, bashing the officers, robbing the coffers of our fathers. He glowers, lusting for power, waiting 3 hours. Cowards defend him, being outvoted won't end him. He'll send them, and laws amend them. Fake electors, silence defectors, bribe the objectors. Protectors can't form a defense. Shouts of hang Mike Pence. The vice president's the only one of the grand old gents making sense, certifying, denying the crying opponent of Biden, fighting against democracy. With shock he'll see his own defeat repeated on TV, a projection, rejection of his anti-democratic election, a failed insurrection.
Yeah, and the line break and insurrection stands on its own is nice too.
Oh yeah, visual poetry.
Yeah. I think you might be revealing some of your political leanings in these two poems I've written so far.
I don't think so. So I, you have to blend in. I pride myself on the ability to set aside my own biases for the sake of poetry or rap or country or whatever the topic may be.
Yeah, you can embody the spirit of whomever you need to write these poems and these lyrical fancies. Tell me about Because of COVID and A Day of Infamy. And
Because of COVID is a poem penned by Teresa M. Becker, who I have no other information on. But I really love this one because every single line in the entire poem, except for the last line, which is simply all because of COVID, has something to laugh at. As you pointed out, many lives were lost due to death. Just is hilarious. That makes me laugh inside and outside, and I love it so much.
It's something we might say forever. Between many lives were lost due to death. Like that is like. I mean, due to death, many lives were lost.
Because of COVID, jobs were lost, and the people were let go from their jobs.
Jobs were lost, and people were let go from their jobs.
Buildings were closed for a while, but some were closed for good. Like, who cares? I mean, the next line.
Businesses would have been better too.
Right,
The idea that buildings
are important.
Buildings weren't closed Well, like if businesses act, it's just a weird. It's just a very like. Was this person in middle school? Like it has
Potentially.
that fuzziness to me that this was a middle school writer. I'm being like it just
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
like a middle school
Very
writing
could,
and
very well
submitting
could be.
to scholastics or something and just put it out there on the internet as well. I was very proud. So
Also, like because of COVID, pets and people were placed on the streets as if that's not what happens, right? You're forced to live on the streets. You're not placed on the streets and then
yeah,
given food in order to survive. It makes it sound as if this was a policy. Oh, we're going to place people on the streets and then give
pets
them
first,
food.
by the way, and people. So that's
I know, right? Yeah, like, and then fire police made me laugh pretty hard. PPE equipment is kind of like ATM machine and PIN
yeah,
number. You know,
yeah.
whom have gone before us. Yeah, they're just some people are living, some still clinging to their lives, and some are dying. As if those are three like discrete categories. All of those people are living, and all of those people are dying.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. That's
I
an
lo- I
awful,
really love that
aggressively
one.
bad poem.
I really love that one. It would be hard to make a worse poem,
Yeah,
a dumber poem,
yeah.
like really
I
dumb.
don't think you could. That's the thing.
I know that's why I had to include it because it was truly award worthy. And then the third one, really the only notable thing about that is that the author of this one, Gary Schulman, MS Ed, every time he wrote his name in his bio, he included MS Ed. He really wanted us to know that he was a master of education.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was just
that's obnoxious.
very, very lame. This one was a very lame
It is.
poem. And
It's
yeah,
one you could have written quickly.
awe and war, the rhyme, attempt to rhyme awe and war irked me. It made my eyelid twitch a little bit when I got to it.
Especially when everyone else's perfect rhyme. It'd be different if it wasn't. Power and tower right fight. Yeah, come on now. Especially in a short poem like that. Yeah.
All right, good job. You got it. You're 2 for 2 so far.
All right.
You ready for the third category?
I'm ready. Where are we going?
Kamala.
Kamala. Got it. I'm ready.
All right, brace yourself. The first one is called The Prophecy. The Prophecy, led through visions of ancient times when Queen Nefertiti graced Egypt with beauty and charm, intellectual elegance and poise. She once said, I have seen the sunrise in all its glory, and I have witnessed its setting with equal awe. Life is a journey, and each day brings new wonders. I cannot ignore Queen Hatshepsut, the daughter of the king, the mightiest of pharaohs herself, conquering wars, and what a valiant commander of battles. Raising the might of her kingdom beyond the desert shores of Kemet, I am suddenly led to ancient Abyssinia, Ethiopia they call it today, when Makeda ruled the kingdom of Sheba and graced the pages of the Holy Bible. The Songs of Solomon praises her person. Never had they seen such wealth. To greet great King Solomon and his court, she left Israel with a legacy that bred the royal line of Ethiopia's kings. From Menelik to Emperor Selassie, driving through this black hole of time, I saw from a distance women kings of past nations, etching a web of the female divine. I saw from afar mothers and daughters of Africa traveling through the great waters to destinations unknown. They had to cook and clean, knit and sew, till the soil and reap the harvest, bearing hope in their pain-struck hearts, praying for redemption to the divine. In return, they were granted a prophecy and a promise, that even though you may not return, even though you have been torn away from your regalness, I will, through your bloodlines, restore your dignity and bring you once again to the palace. Oh yes, Hiram Revels saw it. Blanche Kelso Bruce also saw it. Sojourner Truth received the revelation, and so did Harriet Tubman. And here we are at the door of the White Palace, preparing to crown the reincarnation of these past queens in the person of Kamala, the modern Lotus of Cushan Chennai, as she prepares to take the seat of Commander-in-Chief of the greatest of nations. In her, the East and the West comes together, fulfilling the prophecy of restoration. A promise is a debt, and oh yes, it will be paid, allowing the ancient queens of the past to finally take their rest. What a wonder.
Yes, Queen.
Slay,
Yes.
queen.
This went for like an epic historical mysticism and evoked. I did glaze. It was a little name heavy, name dropping heavy. Of look, here's some history and women kings and past nations, and that's where it picked up when it just said women kings of past nations, etching a web of the female divine. That's when I like started paying attention again because like the name dropping and the places and I don't know, just for me it wasn't. Maybe if I was rooted in those places or understood better, that would be more interesting.
If you weren't a racist, then maybe.
Yeah, I guess so. And I find such an epic poem for Harris to be
Pretty appropriate.
I don't even think that's what she's going for whatsoever. She's trying to like play it as I don't know. I don't know exactly what she's trying to do, but it's not this poem. But this poem, that's how this person is casting it, and it brings an epic like it feels like, in calling it prophecy and like your mysticism and religion and divinity and like this is laid out. This will happen. This is part of the history of the human race, and specifically like the black race, like way that it's a very
evocative.
Deep, yeah, it's evocative. It wasn't bad in that, like it did
I wish
something.
it rhymed.
Yeah, but it was epic. I think it achieved an epic status, and it made me like, if someone's into this particular, I guess I hate to say branding or something, but like if it makes you excited about Harris in a way that she's not exciting in this regard. It's just not, and so there's an attempt to pump her up, ancient queen kind of thing, coming to claim her rightful throne. So that's a thing.
That's a poem.
All right.
Ready for the second option?
I'm just trying to picture a Trumpian poem that was similar, like, about historical roots and prophecy and Sorry, it's just like would be so like wild and okay. All right, let's keep going.
This one is called "The Depth and Gravitas of the Democratic Citizen." It appears to be a haiku. My brain, unburdened, fell from a coconut tree and thought, vote Harris.
Oh man, that's funny, and that's very Bennett. I'm pretty sure that's Bennett. The depth and gravitas of the democratic citizen, like the getting to do a title, getting to do it's a fun punchline reversal, right? Anyway, like haikus get to that's fun. Okay, let's keep going.
Ready for the third, the final one in the Kamala category. This one is called Dear Kamala. If I could sit down with Kamala Harris face to face, I'd tell her there is no way she could win this race. You think you can continue on with the charade? Just look at all the messes you made. You can't even answer one single thing. You're just a dumb little puppet on the Democrat string. As a hurricane destroyed thousands of our own, you were taking care of illegal immigrants and giving them a phone. Making sure our tax money was spent on them, screwing over the American people once again. You are phony, fake, and a total fraud. What I'd like to do to you, so help me God.
God.
It's clear to so many you are not the one to lead. You turned your back on our own people in need. Take your fake ass far away from here. Do some soul searching and find a new career. There are farm animals smarter than you, and even they can see right through the bullshit that comes out of your mouth, even when you use your fake accent from the South. I'm speaking on so many others' behalf who cringe every time we hear you laugh. You turned our beautiful country into a dump. Thank God we have Donald Trump. People tried hard to take him out, but he showed his strength without a doubt. I'm here to tell everyone and proud to say that our leaders are Trump, Vance, and RFK. They will do great things and lead the way, and make us proud again in the USA.
This poem's unique in that it it is like the ultimate sort of MAGA person, right? And I don't know, like they spent the time to write down a rhyming poem that just articulates. It just seems like a person who doesn't typically write a poem wrote a poem, and every rhyme is it has that AABB, I think, all the way through.
Yeah, straight through.
And so there's a discipline to it.
Except for the last what do you call them? Stanza.
Yeah. The final stanza is out, doubt.
It's AABBCC.
CC has it.
AABBB.
Yeah. I mean, technically, it would be the first stanza is AABB,
Yeah,
and the
whatever.
second one
This would be
CCDD.
XXYYY or whatever.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that typically when someone just wants to say the bullshit that comes out of your mouth, you'd more likely just say it out loud, or you'd do a blog post, or you'd tweet something, or the idea of taking the frustration that you have and having the discipline to write it. And it's not particularly good or bad in terms of like it is disciplined enough and it does rhyme, and it's not. So it's just like, I mean, it's not inspired, but it feels like the person doing this maybe like, I don't know. I don't want to project enough. I can't say I know enough about them. I don't. I'm just surprised there's a poem that reads like this. That's all.
All right, so which
making
one?
Any sense?
No, yeah, you're making total sense. And after I reveal which one I wrote, then I'll perform some analysis too.
Okay. So, yeah, you did the haiku for
Yeah,
sure. The
yeah,
depth
you're
and
right.
gravitas.
You're right.
Yeah. I never doubted that. Sorry, I didn't mean a lot.
That's okay.
With that.
I figured you would. Yeah.
Dear Kamala.
Yeah, I hated the prophecy. I honestly hate that one a lot. I hated reading it. I had the same problem that you did. My eyes glazed over until it got to the part.
It was like such an effort to sound smart and historically knowledgeable, and that always rubs me the wrong way. But it also felt like someone who writes poetry regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this: in trying to collect poems, it was pretty difficult to find poems about Kamala Harris. I think, well, she is relatively new to the this election, and let's just be real, she's not the one that draws the most attention between Trump and Biden too, who was her predecessor. He was president, so he drew some attention, and she just didn't. And so there weren't many options to choose from. I think this one is worthy of making it into the segment because it is epic and it is going for a thing. It is an example of a kind of poetry, but it's one that I find totally just uninteresting and eye-rolling.
Well, it's so unbelievable. I mean, I feel like strategically, I mean, I don't know this, but we didn't hear much about her as vice president, almost as if there was an attempt to say, like, okay, we don't want you to know much about her. We don't want her out there too much. And then, this sort of shift that's sort of sudden, that she's all the things we ever needed. So that just feels very clear to me, regardless of where you stand. And this poem attempts to further that narrative and give her some substance, Yeah. That's just what it feels like. And I think I actually like the second half of the poem. I mean,
the second half is much better.
I'm picturing like the mysticism around it and the like tribal like stuff. It's like, I didn't hate it. It just
here's another thing that I dislike, and I dislike that I dislike this among many forms of like creative production. I don't like it when you start telling me stuff and you don't tell me what it was all about until the end. Like this poem, you make it all the way through, like 80% of the poem before it says Kamala. So you don't actually know the subject of the poem You have to keep a
Yeah.
lot. You have to keep a lot in your brain and go, what the hell are they talking about? Why are they telling me about freaking Abyssinia and Ethiopia? Until you get to the end, it was all about Kamala. So like, it doesn't hook you at the beginning.
Right. There is, yeah. In fact, it makes you glaze over at the
Yes.
beginning.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, this is a different form of criticism. I can take the poem for itself, but like applying this sort of epicness to someone who isn't epic is the frustration. Like,
Yeah.
but that's different from the criticism of the
Yeah,
piece.
you're
It's just a piece of literature, I guess.
you're right. I didn't. I guess I didn't. I didn't have that explicit thought, but when you brought it up, it did make me chuckle a little bit. That it is kind of funny to do that.
Well, she needs to be exciting to any candidate you want to be exciting. And what if they're not, or what if they're just?
I mean,
not that
applying such a
inspiring.
poem to any politician is laughable.
I know. I don't. It makes me uncomfortable. And yeah.
The haiku. I'll be honest. After that long meandering poem, I thought we just really needed something short, short and sweet, and so I thought a haiku was
Very funny to follow it. Yeah.
And I wrote two poems kind of with a
longer, yeah.
left orientation, and this was one with a more right orientation.
So then the last one, what do you think? I don't
The
know
last
how to
one,
say it because I don't want to sit here and say, oh, like MAGA.
I forgot to mention the author of the prophecy is Khadija Diallo.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one.
Okay, the prophecy. Yeah.
And then the last one, Dear Kamala, is Kellyanne Shirts.
Okay.
Wrote that one. And yeah, that
should've-
one I thought was just pretty dumb. Smarter than some of the others we read, but still like getting down there, like just very
It's just
basic.
ridiculously surface level. Like if you could get ChatGPT to write a poem, it would be kind of like this.
Right.
If you could
I mean,
get it to. Or it will write poems. I don't know if it'll do it about politicians, especially like there's some meanness in this, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't find this personally. I do not find this poem persuasive because making it a poem with a simplistic AABB scheme, while it is a poem, like that scheme, poems and that scheme, they convey a sense of whimsy and fun, and the topic is not whimsical and fun.
It's frustrated.
So it makes it just seem corny. It undercuts the gravity of your argument.
Yeah, you're totally right. Weird. But it's kind of like it's like a woman in her book club that are like big Trump supporters, and she's like, "Look, I wrote a poem," and she wants them all to be like, "Yeah," they all agree with her already. Like that's what it feels like.
I mean, I think that this Kellyanne Miss Shirts, she does have a bit of personality. She's probably a little MAGA firecracker.
Yeah, a little feisty.
Feisty. Some of her lines have just the slightest tinge of personality. They're farm animals smarter than you, and even they could see right through. Like she thought she was getting some points. She was winning some points in this one. It's a shame that it had to be in this silly little poem, but
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
And I'm also impressed. Like, I wonder how much poetry she writes, because this is a very recent poem containing things from within the last 3 months or so. The hurricane, RFK, joining up with Trump and stuff. So like, she must be on the ball. Like, either she was just really inspired at this very moment, or she's got every couple months she's churning out another poem. Who knows?
Where do you find? Do you go to like poetry.com? I mean, that's a
poetry.com.
That's
I figure poetry.com, a website named like that, must have all of the poetry that exists. And so, yes, that's what I used. Except for the very first one, which was the inspiration, the Amanda Gorman Poet Laureate poem. All right, ready for the next category? This is the Trump
poetry.
Trump poetry. All right, ready for the first one?
Yeah.
This one is called A Poem for November 6th.
Okay.
You lost, you son of a bitch.
Okay. That's just setting the tone right off. Okay.
For not much longer will you be rich. Hitler you hail, you'll do it in jail because of fraud, rape, and blackmail. Your stupid hair and orange skin makes me want to punch your face in. You hate people of color and my uterus. You did.
Sorry. I hate my uterus. This is very funny.
You did nothing to stop school shooters.
Uterus and shooters? Okay.
You failed in your insurrection. With Stormy, you couldn't get an erection. I'm so glad you lost this election because the people made a female selection. With you in office, we would be so embarrassed, but now we have President Harris. America can now leave its slump. No thanks to the horrible Donald Trump.
Oh man! At first, I thought it might be you just being really funny to start off, and then there were a few moments I'm just like, no, I don't think you could do uterus and shooters. I just think you just couldn't do it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you predicted I would just, and then, yeah, no, there's just no way you did this. But it's very funny, and this person. It's the same criticism as the other MAGA one. Is like it's very angry, but it rhymes, and this one's angrier and and a little bit more absurd. But so it's even funnier. The criticism's even funnier for the same reasons. All right, let's keep going.
All right, the second one is called "What Hump Trump." You sit in your ivory tower. Why should I even bother? You said, I messed it up. You sit in your ivory tower. Why should I even bother? You're the man who said you're fire. Had a book, Art of the Deal. Your spinning wheel is getting too fast. Lay up on the gas. Many in North Korea will be wearing a face mask. What hump Trump knocking at your door? Are you in the theater of the insane? Lest I refrain, another open door. Check this. As a young child, you were already loaded. Your inner soul imploded. Through the duration of time, you learned how to rhyme, kind of a Robin Hood, but you wouldn't share with the poor. You got hooked on Twitter and your homies none better. But always a gentleman, never given the middle finger. Still many of us hate your guts. Still got lots to prove. Others refrain, just not in a good mood. You may have to do a makeover with your hair as in a comb-over. Yet you try to stand tall while working on this great wall. We may be in store of a shotgun wedding. Maybe. What are you kidding? What hump Trump may be coming to a theater near you? Has he bitten off far more than he could chew? Ivanka still has a voice with a choice. Try to pull things together if you try. We're out busy living the lie that says, I am what I do. Still got to mend your ways, instead of getting lost in some purple haze. You and Pence look like the Blues Brothers reunion. Are you sure you know what the hell you're doing? Perhaps you got junk in your trunk. What hump Trump?
What? Hump Trump? Like, I had a hard time with this one. Like, I feel like I got a little confused and then kept waiting to go, all right, look, I'll disregard the fact that I was confused there and I can revisit it and I'll get back on track. But it just kept throwing me off a little bit. And I get you get this sort of, again, it's overall vibe of you don't like Trump, and there's some criticisms in there, but it's still like squinty to make sense of it. There's just so many lines there that don't work or don't make sense. It's weird because I don't want to be here and say like one of the reasons you write poetry is for the love of words, and those love of words can be multi-layered. The definition, the combination, the sound of them, the playfulness of them, the tone, the connotations. There's lots of reasons to use words, and poetry allows us to be playful with it. But I do have issue if you're communicating ideas, if it's clear that this is the poem of ideas, and I don't understand the idea, and it isn't particularly beautiful. Like, the more beautiful or interesting the phrasing is, the more I'm willing to ease off on that doesn't make complete sense, because I can just go, but the joy of the word pairing is so great. But this one just constantly left me going, I could pick a dozen examples, almost every line. So that's how I felt about that.
Yeah. All right.
Just sort of a, what are you kidding me? Like, you're a punk. Like, that was just kind of the whole poem. Let's hear the last one, which, based on these two, ready for your poem. Let's go.
This one is called Trump, the New Word for Freedom. In the annals of time, a president revered, harmed by a coward's act that struck us with fear. Trump embodiment of freedom and might. May Jesus Christ protect him day and night. We offer our gratitude to the Lord above for thwarting Satan's attack with divine love. But let it be known, this battle is not through. When God intervenes, we've strayed too askew. O angels celestial, unleash your righteous wrath. Destroy every foe who treads on freedom's path. Let believers in Christ raise their hands high with thanks and gratefulness, filling up the sky.
Oh, man. I think that's yours. It's just, give me a second. I think it's a skew that kind of made me go, okay, there's some, well, like, maybe, hold on. I think it's you. Let me go back to the very first one. It's just not you. Maybe. Because there was rich, jail, male, skin in, uterus, shooters, insurrection, erection. I mean, I could see the first one maybe being you. I'm going with the last one.
You're wrong. I got
Okay.
you. I got you. You lost, you son of a bitch.
Okay. That was you?
Yeah.
Okay. Good for you. I mean, I was definitely the first and last one.
I love that you really landed on uterus and shooters because that's my favorite. That line spawned this poem because I thought that rhyme was so awful and hilarious.
And you allowed it to be in because it is
I
so
allowed it.
funny. You hate people of color and my uterus. You did nothing to stop school shooters. It's just sort
Shooters. You have to say it the right
Shooters.
way.
Shooters.
Uterus and shooters.
Shooter. Uterus. Shooters. You could. That's how you have to do it. Uterus. Uterus.
Yeah,
Shooters.
right.
Uterus. You hate my uterus. Uterus sounds dirty. Like, good. You got me. Okay. Well, then I want to learn more about the second and third one as well. But let me stay. Like everything else, I'm wondering if that wouldn't have thrown me if I take that line out, which you said was the seed line of the poem. You really liked it.
I really liked that one, yeah, because it was so bad. I felt like I really lowered myself with this one. Like
Yeah,
I
you
think
got into the mud.
I blended in. I felt like I was wearing camouflage, poetic camouflage, and apparently it worked because I
you
I
did.
got you.
I saw it was very, very believable. It was a little too angry for me to believe Bennett just doesn't get that way. And then the bad rhyme. Even after knowing it, I can't just go, oh, well, I should have guessed it. Like, no, you cloaked yourself well.
The second one was penned by a man named Mario William Vitale. And he had a little bio that I included for us since he's very prolific. Mario Vitale is a poet with over 1,000 poems toward his credit platform. Mario Vitale was born in Bristol, Connecticut, has developed a skill for writing poetry in the free verse form, has been featured on hubpages.com, starlightcafe.com, and Poetry Soup. Vitale lives with his elderly mother in Walcott, Connecticut, currently has written well over 1,000 poems and 2 short stories toward credit platform. Vitale has hooked the poetic world by storm, being featured on Google, Yahoo, and MSN.
When he featured on Google, what does it even mean anyway?
Looks up to contemporaries in the poetry industry such as John Ashbery and Major Jackson. Has been a favorite featured poet reader at Barnes & Noble in Waterbury, Connecticut. Also featured on such sites as Poetry Soup, Writers Cafe, and Neo Poet. I wonder who wrote this bio of him.
Check this. As a young child, you were already loaded. Your inner soul imploded. Just
That one's
loaded.
pretty good.
Yeah, it works, and but the word "loaded" to being rich, fine, because that kind of it fits with the tone of the poem. Through the duration of time, you learned how to rhyme. Kind of a Robin
bad.
Hood, but you wouldn't share with the poor. Like, I don't. What do you mean you learned how to rhyme?
I don't know.
Like, are we talking?
maybe you
is he
become
still
street
talking
smart.
to Trump?
Yeah, Trump became like street smart. Like he learned the way of the world a little bit.
You got hooked on Twitter, and your homie's none better.
I don't know what that means.
There's an apostrophe. I was gonna say, and like the people you hang out with are also on Twitter, being terrible on Twitter. But your homies none better. Like you're hooked on the Twitter and what the none better of your homies. Like
I thought it meant it's a contraction for your homie is none better. So maybe he's referring to like Mike Pence or something. Because this one seemed to be old.
yeah.
This one seemed to be
But
for the last election.
yeah, because there were a few Pence references.
Yeah, right.
And I get the way maybe like there's just a lot of we may be in store of a shotgun wedding, but you're throwing out this metaphor where it might be forced to be
sense.
with you, but that you leave it. It doesn't. I mean,
right.
Like the metaphor could make sense if you extended it, but it's just you're throwing so much out there too fast, and it left me going, "Huh? Wait, what?
Me too.
I want to grasp."
I included this one because it just seemed because it confused me. I included it, and it was about Trump, but not in the normal vein of what you would expect exactly. Like I would have expected them all to be like the one I wrote, angry, calling him Hitler, and so on.
Right.
But this one wasn't really.
I mean,
it was definitely critical of Trump, but it wasn't
out of your
mind. Like I thought, but always a gentleman, never given the middle finger. What does that mean? Does that mean that he's saying that Trump is actually behaving well and not demeaning people? But then he says, still, many of us hate your guts. So he's exposing his own view.
That line doesn't make, but always a gentleman, never given.
Still got lots to prove. Others refrain.
Anyone calling him always a gentleman is not a phrase people apply.
No, so I don't understand that one. Anyway, like I analyzed this guy who, by the way, is very prolific on poetry.com. He had dozens of poems on there, many political.
What does it even mean? What hump Trump?
I don't
know.
Even
help me with that?
I don't know, but it's very poetic.
It's fun. The pleasant of the words makes me overlook it a little. What hump Trump?
Based on the bio, this isn't true, but if I was just analyzing this poem, I would imagine that this is a young, like 16-year-old Hispanic guy into like rap culture, and he's out there on the street like spitting fire, and this is like one that he really liked, and so he wrote it down. And like that's why all there don't have to be that many rhymes, because some of it is in the rhythm and cadence, and that's what I think this is. That's what I would say. That's the best picture of what this is.
Yeah. I could see it. I mean, I picture everything you said. It's just that he's in his late 40s. So.
Right. Yeah. Which
I'm being serious though. That's what I picture. Well, but he still like wants to be young. Doesn't accept. Thinks he can roll with the 20-somethings.
That makes it a little less impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last one was just this guy Kyle Inkman is the author of Trump: The New Word for Freedom.
Feels pretty strong. I mean, pretty strong, and that's why I thought it was so over the top that I was this is a representation you've made. You could see why I'd pick it, right?
Absolutely. This one is very.
It was so over top though that I thought, and it wasn't quite good enough.
Yeah, in the same way that the prophecy portrayed Kamala as the legacy of the ancient black queens. This one presents Trump as like God's chosen.
Right. Yeah, they're both equally hyperbolic. This one is just This one doesn't. This is like the person who wrote the Black Queen one felt like at least they were trying to prove to you that they're smart. This is like not not a thoughtful poem. It's just hey, he's God's choice kind of thing.
Yeah, this one seems to me like if I had to make a guess at who Kyle Inkman is, he's like a man. He's retired. He's in his 60s, and he just left his Sunday school group. The Sunday school group just like ended, and he's chatting with his Sunday school other people, and they're talking about politics, and he's just really inspired to go write about how he thinks Trump is God's chosen and so on. And he came home and wrote this poem. Yeah.
You're right. I think I like that story better than like than him having like pictures of Trump with a little Cupid's body, you know,
Right, right. Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that. Like, I don't know. Like, I could see that kind of stuff too. But I like the reading you have of it better.
All right, are you ready for the final category?
I
Joe Biden.
am.
We're gonna round things out with the elder.
With the elder.
All right, the first one is titled Biden.
Let's do it.
Biden, what are you hiding? Checks almost $700 doubled. What's your troubles? You know everyone can't pay, yet you bill them the same way. Poor people will fail, then they'll end up in jail. Why do you act like a jerk and have so many people hurt? They never had to steal before. Now you're making them do a lot more. That's what you promised us. Many of us will need a bus. I'm a senior, disabled, and by myself. Since you took over, now I'm eating on a corner store shelf. My home was swept across the ocean. My family is full of many emotions. Will you arrest us if we steal a golden cup or a fast food meal? You knew what you were going to do. That's why you elected Miss Harris, too. You pulled the wool over our eyes. To our lovely life, we're saying goodbye.
It's weird. It's like a supporter turned critic, and I'm gonna take them at their value. I'm a senior, disabled, and by myself, and it's such a bad poem, and I don't like reading it or hearing it, and I don't want to think about it too much more. Just this sort of like, it was just a weird criticism of Biden.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
not what I expect when I think this is either going to be praising or critiquing Biden, and then I have these thoughts of how those would go, and this was a critique in a way that I did not. It's just, yeah, it's just kind of pathetic. All right,
All right.
yeah.
Number 2. This one is called From the Journal of Joe Biden. I was dreaming of ice cream and young, sweet-smelling hair, driving my Corvette, classified papers flying up into the air, when I was rudely awoken by Dr. Jill. She makes me call her that, or else she gets ill. She reminded me that I'm Commander-in-Chief. For a moment, I sat stunned in disbelief. That's right, I'm the President of the USA. I guess I ought to figure out what to do today. I really want to go lay on the beach, but they tell me instead I have to give a speech. So I put on my suit and my Ray-Bans, and I slowly walked to the car with slightly outstretched hands. I didn't stumble, not even one time. It reminds me of when I was in my prime. Speaking of then, I remember back in '73, my dad was introducing corn pop to me. What? Oh, right. Anyway, I guess I'll get back to my day. I read from the teleprompter about Kevlar vests on deer, something about guns and Trump and fear, extreme MAGA Republicans and the bad stuff they bring for freedom and democracy and, you know, the thing. Two-faced pony soldiers, you don't know Jack. If you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Some reporter asked me for details of my plan, but I shut him up with a, come on, man. Inflation, the economy, the Constitution, terrorists, I'll just leave that stuff to the trusty Kamala Harris. After that, I gave him the 1,000-yard stare. Tomorrow, maybe I can beat Medicare. I left the podium after taking a beating, but the day wasn't over. I had a defense meeting. Man, this thing was really boring. Partway through, I was already snoring. They'll figure it out. They always can. It's just something about leaving Afghanistan. Anyway, it's 4 p.m., so it's time to turn in, but tomorrow I can do it all over again. One thing to remember in this journal I'm writing, it's really sweet being President Joe Biden.
I mean, that's funny. Yeah, it was good. I mean, it hit a lot of like the criticisms from the right on him and wove it in there, and the rhyming was good. Could it be you? I think it could be, but I don't think it is. I don't know. I gotta wait for the last one. But
All right.
I mean, there is some practically like it's long, and are you really gonna sit there and write a really long one? I don't know, but it was clever, and like I would read that, chuckle, and you know, probably move on.
All right, the last and final one is called Just a Creep. Joe Biden is old and he is a creep. When you're not looking, he is smelling you. After a long day, Biden's brain is weak.
What? Will you read that whole poem again?
All right, just the creep. Joe Biden is old and he is a creep. When you're not looking, he is smelling you. After a long day, Biden's brain is weak.
Oh man, it's like when you're not. It's not a it's not a haiku. I don't like it because it's like you've got creep and weak and they're like and you and
Actually, every line is 10 syllables, so it has some structure there.
oh yeah.
So maybe it's some form of haiku.
Some disciplined 3-line structure. I'm struggling. You didn't write the first one. I don't think. I feel good about that. The last one just is a wild card, and I could see you writing the middle one, but it's long, and maybe that's like you knew on some level you had. If you're really like aiming to fool me, it was funny, and it was like something I could see being published in a political magazine, or like I really could. Like it's just like what like. Not propaganda, but like what do you just call like political cartoons and that kind of stuff. It just feels like it belongs right alongside. It's just got little jabs in there all the way through, and it makes fun of him. His holistic like doesn't know what he's doing. He's old and he's snoring, and it's just and it's not overly mean, but it just does give you the feeling he's just inadequate, and it's just like. It's ribbing. It's still in the realm of ribbing. It's a constant ribbing. I'm gonna go with you writing. Oh man, but it isn't as tight as I would picture coming from you. So I don't know. I'll be honest. This is the toughest one, and I was wrong already. So I'll probably get this one wrong too.
What are you going with, man? What are you going with?
I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna do it from the Journal of Joe Biden. Is you?
You got it. That's right.
Okay. Yeah.
I did that. Good analysis. Good analysis. The first one was by Maria Clavo, and I felt sad when I read it as well.
Because it's also bad and dumb, and I don't want to call an elderly person down by themselves dumb. You know,
Yeah, right.
I want. I don't know.
I thought I had some interesting concepts, like where
Take
was
me
it?
there. You gotta convince me.
It was, will you arrest us if we steal a golden cup or a fast food? Like there was the idea in here that he's causing people to steal things. Why do you act like a jerk and have so many people hurt? They never had to steal before. Now you're making them do a lot more. I think moral issue with that sentiment that Joe Biden is making people steal.
Right. And that they didn't do it before.
Well, yeah, that too.
It's like dumb. That's when I say things are dumb. Sometimes I think it's just those logical leaps and the idea that you believe that is generally true. Of course, people stole before, and now you're making them do it. Is also that's a very. I mean, it fits with the. Like, I was thinking about you could look at liberals are more interested in emphasizing like big giant group behaviors and how things are out of people's control, and conservatives are more interested in individuals and what control they do have. And this reads like a liberal who, again, with the stealings out of control, we have to do it now because you've made this system and this we're only left to steal. And so that's why the criticism's unusual, is because it seems like a supporter turned critic.
It does seem that way, yeah. And yeah, from the Journal of Joe Biden, good analysis. It is long. I intentionally made it long because I realized that all the ones I had written had been short so far, and I wanted to blend in. But it also wasn't that tight, and that's because I wrote it at I finished it at 11:30 p.m. or something. I was very tired, and I was ready to be done. Because I've been writing poetry all freaking day. I mean, I basically spent all day yesterday finding poems and writing.
We didn't have as much playfulness with the language. It was more content driving it, that's
yes.
Again, we always talk about poetry being the tension between the two, the playfulness of the language and the content, and you were
Yes.
like, I got an idea for content. Like
Right,
it's a
exactly.
funny, it's a funny idea.
Yeah, it's funny, a lot of little jokes, and yeah, not too harsh, but linguistically, it's not impressive at all.
And that's
I
why
don't.
I was just like, it doesn't really feel Bennett-ish.
Yeah, I think the only rhyme that I would class as slightly interesting is terrorists and Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
I think that's the
yeah.
only one, and maybe can in Afghanistan. I mean, just because Afghanistan is fun to throw in as a rhyming word. And the last one
But
was
you
just
got a lot of
hilarious.
things in over the years. The last one I can't even get over.
The last one's just
Joe
funny.
Biden is old and he is a creep.
When you're not looking,
not
he is
looking.
smelling you.
After a long day, Biden's brain is weak. And I guess he's trying to rhyme, or the poet is
Creeping
rhyming the
weak?
first. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I just a little bit of meta commentary about this. I shouldn't be surprised, but I was a little surprised at how utterly unintelligent political poetry was.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't find anything that I thought was legitimately impressive. Maybe that's not a surprise given my attitude, my disposition towards
It's hard
poetry.
to impress you. Yeah, yeah.
But
yeah.
but I didn't even
Nothing
find
impressed
anything.
me. You didn't show me anything impressive.
No,
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. And maybe it's just maybe I should expect it. But like, if you're, firstly, you could make a case that if you're mad enough to rant about politics at all, then you've already lost some amount of like credit. And if you're ranting in poetry, then you're losing even more credit, and you're just not going to find the shining beacons of human achievement on poetry.com, political poetry about Trump and Biden and Kamala Harris. And that's definitely what
Right.
I experienced, is that, man, this is it was a challenge for me to lower myself and try to copy, and I failed in 4 out of 5 instances, because you were able to very quickly guess which ones were
Well,
mine.
3 at 5, I was like, that's yours.
Right.
But then you like tried to be different.
I couldn't resist, though. Like, it's hard for me to give up on some fun words and rhymes.
I know. You can't
know?
help it. And you out yourself, and it's funny, and I like it. But and you should. It's better that I identify it quickly than you not put good words together. Like that's
Right.
better than
Yeah, I don't mind
than
if you win the game. As long as it's about the journey.
It's
I will
about the
say
journey.
this. I was surprised. You might question what's the breakdown of the subject of the poetry between Trump and Biden and Harris.
Yeah.
And I already mentioned that Harris didn't have a lot, but that's probably because of how recent she is really onto the scene. Trump had an astonishing amount of poems in which his name appeared. Multiple pages of entries of poems, and they weren't all negative. In fact, I would hazard a guess at this roughly 50-50. There were a lot of pro-Trump poems online, which I did not expect at all.
I did not either. I mean, I pictured a few, like the Jesus one, and but I did not picture a lot of. Yeah, I guess that's what we're saying, is like you don't picture the people who are attracted to poetry in terms of liberal orientation or conservative orientation is just clearly liberal, right?
Yeah, right.
Openness
Well,
and like
what you think of
as a
poetry,
medium.
poetry speaks to your emotions, right? It doesn't speak to your rational brain.
Yeah.
And the liberal side tends to be temperamentally a little bit more emotional. Their arguments tend to be a little bit more emotional. The issues that they gravitate towards tend to be more emotionally oriented. And so you would expect that the people who really go all in on that emotion are going to end up writing poems about it.
Yeah.
And so that there would be a tilt. Like, it would take more emotional investiture to get a conservative to write a poem. And you just wouldn't expect there to be as much. But I was surprised at how much there was. And there were a decent amount for Joe Biden, too, kind of in the middle. Although, I will say this, I couldn't find any positive poems about Joe Biden. Everything I read was negative about Joe Biden. Like, I tried to sprinkle, I tried to balance the poem choice for this segment and have some critical of Trump, some critical of Kamala, But Biden, they were all critical of Biden, and I could have written a pro Biden poem, but I couldn't think of the material at that late at night.
That's maybe the difficulty. That's
That
actually
may be-
very revealing, right?
it
You
is,
can obviously imagine a pro-Trump and an anti-Trump poem, and same with Harris, like no issue whatsoever. But
Yeah.
Biden, yeah, what does the pro-Biden poem look like? I mean, seriously,
Really tough. Yeah, it was tough.
it would. I mean, you could write a like Democratic poem or something.
Well,
you know?
I guess that speaks to the state of some of the discourse. Like, there really aren't good pro Biden or Harris arguments. Oh, I say that obviously with some amount of bias there, but all of the arguments, sorry, again, I'm exaggerating. Many of the arguments from their side are simply anti-Trump arguments. That's like this election is about either
It's
for
a
Trump
Trump
or
election.
anti-Trump. It's all about Trump.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, poetry, political poetry. Did you find that entertaining?
I love whenever there's some sort of like Bennett production or just examination of like 3 pieces of content. It like focuses discussion
Yes,
and I just like it.
I like it too. I had a lot of fun. I always have fun working on it. It just takes a little bit of time because you can't simply grab random samples. You have to be a little discerning in the ones you pick. Same with rap and country and pop.
Yeah, you want them to cover a spread. You want them to be representative. There's a lot of like some degree of
Right. But it's fun to fun to prove to the world that I am a poet and a rap artist and a country music artist and so on. And 2028 rolls around, I can do it from the presidential end.
Yes. Write a poem about yourself.
Right.
Okay.
That's it.
Goodbye.
Did you learn who you're voting for? Did it persuade you? Now you've made up your mind?
I'm now dizzier than ever. Probably Biden. Probably Biden. Just because I feel bad for it. If they're all right. Bye.
Bye.